The suns of Arcana blazed through the high canopy, scattering golden shards of light onto the moss-carpeted ground. Kale Draven wiped the sweat from his brow, his lungs dragging in heavy, humid air. 3 months in exile and still the planet's wild rhythms felt alien to him. His boots sank slightly into the loam as he trudged forward, eyes alert, hands resting on the metal bracers strapped to his forearms. He had left everything behind when the gateway imploded, the colony, his rank, the fragile dream of a family. It had been 3 years since Mira was torn from him along with 12,000 others. Every step since had been an act of survival, not living. But today felt different. Something tugged him away from his usual patrols, toward a faint sound carried through the forest air. Tap. Scrape. A low grunt. Kale stopped at the edge of a clearing, his soldier's instincts demanding caution. His gaze narrowed on the figure within. A woman, humanoid, but unmistakably not human, was bending over a half-built structure of stone blocks. Her skin was a pale lavender shade, luminous in the sunlight. Long crimson hair, bound in a thick braid, brushed against her back as she strained to lift a block almost too heavy for her. Her clothing was simple, dark woven fabric clinging tightly to her body, revealing the obvious curve of late pregnancy. Every movement betrayed exhaustion, but also an iron determination. Kale stepped forward, voice low, steady. "Need a hand with that?" The woman spun with surprising speed, a short blade flashing in her grip. Her violet eyes narrowed, pupils tightening in the brightness. Kale raised both hands slowly. "Easy. I didn't mean to startle you. My name's Kale Draven. I live east of here." She held her ground, the blade unwavering, but her gaze flicked over him, cataloging weapon, posture, intent. Her voice was soft, melodic, but layered with fatigue. "Human. Last I checked," Kale said, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Looks like you're building something ambitious." Her glance shifted toward the stacked stones, then back to him. "I require no help." "With respect, you do," he said gently, nodding at the block she had failed to lift. "I used to be an engineer. Building is what I do." A long pause stretched between them. At last, she lowered the blade, but didn't put it away. "I am Saris Vera," she said finally, her hand drifting protectively to her belly. Kale inclined his head. "A strong name. And a strong choice to be out here." Her expression flickered. "I need shelter. Protection." "From the weather," he asked carefully, "or from something else?" Saris did not answer right away. The silence was filled only by the call of some distant creature. Finally, she said, "Both." Kale nodded, deciding not to press. "Then let's get a roof over your head before nightfall. I'll do the lifting. You tell me how you want it." For the first time, her guarded mask cracked slightly. "You would help a stranger. Isn't that what people are supposed to do?" Kale replied, already moving toward the unfinished wall. Together, they worked until the suns dipped lower, their rays dimming into amber fire. Kale gathered wood and stone, setting beams while Saris guided the placement with precise gestures. He couldn't help noticing how often her eyes drifted toward the distant hills, as though expecting someone, or something, to appear. "You know," Kale said casually while fitting a beam into place, "there's a settlement not far from here. Safer than being alone in the forest." Saris's hands froze on the stone she was arranging. "I cannot go there. Because I choose not to." Her words were final, brooking no argument. By dusk, the walls stood complete, crowned with the skeleton of a roof. Not perfect, but shelter nonetheless. Kale wiped his hands on his trousers, stepping back to admire the work. "Tomorrow we'll finish," he said. "If you'll allow me to return." Saris leaned against the doorway, her violet skin darkening with the fading light, crimson hair shimmering faintly. She studied him a long moment. Then, "You may return, Kale Draven." He gathered his pack, ready to depart. She called after him, voice steady but laced with something raw, "Why?" He turned, puzzled. "Why what? Why help me? You do not know me." Kale's jaw tightened, memory flickering of Myra's final days, the unborn child lost with her. "Because I recognize someone who needs a friend." Sarissa's gaze softened, just slightly. "I have not had many of those." "Well," Kale said with a faint smile, "now you have one." The next morning dawned in amber light. Kale returned, carrying a pack of tools and food. Saris was already awake, her crimson braid swinging as she tried to wedge stones into gaps. She turned at his approach, violet eyes widening briefly before settling. "You returned." "I said I would," Kale replied, setting down his supplies. "And I brought breakfast. Can't build on an empty stomach." They ate together, a quiet ritual broken only by the calls of native birds. As they worked afterward, Kale caught her studying him with open curiosity. "Humans are determined," she said at last. Kale chuckled. "That a polite way of saying stubborn?" "Perhaps." A faint smile tugged at her lips. "But it is admirable." They fell into rhythm, he hauling the heavy stones, she placing them with precise care. Occasionally their hands brushed, her skin cool as twilight against his warmth. Kale found the sensation oddly grounding. By midday, they had nearly finished the roof. Saris handed him a container of water. "You are skilled at this." "Military engineering had its uses," Kale replied, drinking deeply. Her eyes lingered on him. "Why did you leave your service?" Kale's face shadowed. "After my wife died, I couldn't stay. Too many ghosts." Sarissa's voice softened. "I, too, have lost. My bondmate was executed for loving me." Kale froze, the bluntness of her confession hanging in the air. She pressed a trembling hand to her belly. "They forbade our union. When they discovered this child, they sought to erase us both. I fled." Kale's jaw tightened, protective fury rising. "They'll have to go through me first." Her eyes widened at the fire in his tone. "You would defend us? You barely know me." "I know enough," Kale said firmly. Their gazes locked, the air between them charged. The pull was undeniable, primal. Kale's heart hammered in his chest. Before he could speak, a low humming carried across the treetops. He stiffened. Aircraft. Low altitude. Sarissa's violet skin paled. "They've found me. The Purity Hunters." She clutched her belly, voice breaking. "They will take my child. Not while I'm breathing." Kale was already packing her few belongings, movements precise, efficient. Together, they slipped into the shadowed forest, danger pressing at their heels. The forest swallowed them, its dense canopy muting the twin suns until shadows stretched like long fingers across the ground. Kale moved at a steady pace, pulse rifle slung across his shoulder, his free hand clearing obstacles when Saris faltered. Though she moved with surprising grace for someone carrying so much weight, he could see the strain in her steps, the way her free hand never left her belly. Behind them, faint echoes carried, a rhythmic hum of aircraft and the sharper sounds of boots pressing through undergrowth. The Purity Hunters were spreading a net. "They will not stop," Saris whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustle of leaves. "The child I carry threatens everything they cling to. They will burn this forest to ash before letting it live." Kale's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure they fail." He led her through a stream, the icy water masking their tracks. She kept to the bank while he waded waist-deep, letting his warmer human body throw off the pursuer's sensors. When they regrouped, her violet eyes glimmered with approval. "You think like a soldier," she said. "Old habits," he muttered. As dusk approached, the terrain shifted. The wild forest gave way to cultivated slopes, traces of human terraforming visible in the neat ridges and patterned growth. From the crest of a hill, Kale pointed toward a dark shape half buried in the earth. My home, he said. It's a bunker, built to outlast storms and raids. It'll hold. Sarissa's breath caught when the armored walls came into view. You live in a fortress. Better paranoid than dead, Kale answered, scanning the horizon before leading her down the slope. At the recessed door, Kale pressed his palm to a hidden scanner. With a hiss, the steel barrier slid open. Light spilled from within, illuminating a space that blended the sterile angles of military design with softer touches, wooden furniture, potted plants, small pieces of hand-carved art. Saris stepped inside cautiously. It is safe. Safer than stones in a clearing, Kale said, sealing the door behind them. He moved to the control panel, activating perimeter sensors. If anyone comes close, I'll know. Her crimson braid slipped over one shoulder as she lowered herself onto the couch, the weight of exhaustion finally overcoming her rigid self-control. She pressed both hands against her belly, grimacing faintly. Kale knelt in front of her, concern written plainly on his face. You're in pain. The child is restless, she admitted. Her voice wavered, but her gaze held steady. Its growth has quickened these past days. Faster than any birth of my people. It may come sooner than expected. Kale frowned. Then we need medical help. There's a human outpost 20 kilometers east. No, her tone was sharp, almost desperate. The hunters watch those places. To step into one would be to deliver myself into their hands. Kale hesitated, torn between logic and the fierce instinct to protect. At last, he leaned back, raking a hand through sweat-damp hair. Then we make do here. Whatever it takes, I'll keep you both alive. For the first time, Sarissa's guarded expression cracked. She reached out, her cool lavender fingers brushing his jawline with delicate certainty. Why do you care so much? Kale swallowed, caught off guard by the sudden intimacy. Because I've already lost a family once. I'm not losing another. Her lips parted slightly, surprise flickering across her features. But before either could speak further, a harsh beep from the console shattered the fragile moment. Kale rose instantly, checking the display. A drone hovered overhead, its scanning lights cutting across the forest canopy. They're tightening the net, he muttered. Persistent bastards. He keyed into an encrypted frequency, one he hadn't touched in years. Bastion, this is Draven. Authentication code Delta, 947. Respond. Static crackled, then a gravelly voice broke through. Kale. You ghost. Thought you were dead. Good to hear your voice too, Rourke, Kale replied grimly. I need intel, Syrian purity units, current operations, tracking methods. A low whistle carried over the channel. You've stepped in it, brother. Give me 6 hours, I'll get you something. In the meantime, watch your ass. Those zealots don't play games. The comm went silent. Kale turned to find Saris watching him, eyes unreadable. You called for help, she said softly. Old friend. Ex-Marine. If anyone can dig up information, it's him. Her gaze dropped to her belly, then back to him. They will track us not only by sight or sound, but by blood. The child's pattern shines like a beacon to them. Kale crossed the room, crouching so they were eye to eye. Then we make sure they never reach it. Her hand trembled slightly as she touched his. You would fight for us? Even when it means drawing fire onto yourself? I'd burn the whole damn forest down if it kept you safe, Kale said, voice low but fierce. Their faces were close now, the space between filled with the hum of unspoken truths. Her scent, something like rain mixed with metal, coiled around him. For a heartbeat, the weight of war, pursuit, and loss fell away. She whispered, Kale. And then his lips found hers. The kiss began tentative, almost hesitant, but deepened quickly into something hungrier, desperate, like a dam breaking after too many years of silence. Her skin was cool beneath his touch, her taste strange and intoxicating, unlike anything he had ever known. When they parted, both were breathing hard. Sarissa's violet eyes shimmered with conflict. I should not want this. You are not of my kind. Do you want me to stop? Kale asked quietly. Her silence was answer enough. But before their moment could go further, a low tremor shook the walls. A rumble of engines, closer this time. Kale moved to the console. Dropships, he said grimly. Ground troops. They found us. Saris was already on her feet, blade in hand, crimson hair swaying as she squared her shoulders. Then we move again. Kale opened a hidden compartment, revealing an arsenal of weapons. He handed her a compact pulse sidearm. Her fingers danced over the controls with practiced ease. Strategic analyst, she said, meeting his raised eyebrow. My people may not act quickly, but I learned to prepare. Something fierce and primal stirred in Kale at the sight of her, lavender skin, crimson hair, carrying another man's child, yet standing ready with weapon in hand. When this is over, he muttered, kissing her fiercely once more, we're going to have a real conversation about what comes next. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Assuming we survive. The bunker shuddered again as the perimeter alarms wailed. Kale slung a rifle over his shoulder, eyes sharp. Then let's make damn sure we do. Together, they slipped through the concealed exit at the rear, vanishing into the dark forest, shadows stretching long as the purity hunters closed in. The night air bit cold against Kale's skin as they pushed through tangled brush, the cries of alien predators distant, almost drowned beneath the mechanical roar of dropships settling into the valley. The purity hunters had deployed ground squads, their voices echoing in clipped Syrian commands. 3 kilometers northeast, Kale whispered, his breath misting. There's a network of caves. They'll lead us close to the human medical outpost. Saris adjusted her grip on her swollen belly, determination set in the hard line of her mouth. The child does not wait. The contractions began last night. I thought I could control them, but, she grimaced as another ripple of pain coursed through her. Kale swore softly. You should have told me. Her violet eyes flashed. Would it have changed our path? The hunters are here whether or not I ache. He couldn't argue, but the fire in her tone made his chest tighten with something fierce, something more than admiration. They moved fast, Kale scouting ahead, Saris close behind. Twice they dropped flat as searchlights cut through the forest, drones humming overhead. Saris pressed herself against the ground, lavender skin shimmering faintly in the pale glow of Arkina's twin moons. Kale covered her with his body until the light swept past. Finally, they reached a narrow fissure in a ridge, just wide enough for them to slip through. Inside, the air cooled instantly, thick with the smell of stone and dripping water. Bioluminescent fungi painted the walls in shifting blue, casting Saris in an ethereal glow. These caves connect to the river system, Kale explained quietly. Colonists mapped them years ago. One exit comes out just behind the medical compound. Saris leaned against the wall, steadying her breathing as another contraction gripped her. She clenched her jaw, refusing to cry out. Tell me about human births, she whispered suddenly, trying to distract herself. Kale glanced at her, caught off guard by the question. They're celebrated. Family gathers, there's music, gifts. Some cultures hold naming rituals. She smiled faintly, hands stroking her belly. Syrian births are clinical. Records, genetic evaluations, reports of viability. My people long ago lost the concept of joy in such things. What about your bondmates' people? Kale asked carefully. Her eyes softened at the memory. Meridians celebrate with light and sound. He spoke of it often. Of filling the air with color when our child came. A flicker of envy stabbed Kale, though he crushed it quickly. This child was not his blood, but the thought of losing either mother or infant tightened something deep inside him. Ceres must have sensed his shift, because she reached for his hand. He would have approved of you. Before Kale could respond, the cave rumbled faintly, dust drifting from the ceiling. Far above, muffled detonations rolled. That's Rourke, Kale muttered, checking his comm static filled the channel, then a familiar growl, diversion's lit. You've got a 90-minute window, Draven. Move fast, purifiers are authorized for sterilization. Orbital strikes on the table. Kale's blood ran cold. Sterilization. They'd burn the valley clean, wiping out every living thing, rather than risk the hybrid child being born. He tightened his grip on Ceres's hand. We don't have much time. The tunnels twisted endlessly, but Kale knew the routes. He guided her through, steadying her whenever she stumbled, catching her when contractions doubled her over. She never lingered long, each time forcing herself upright with a will that left him in awe. When the final passage opened into forest again, dawn was just brushing the horizon. Ahead stood the outpost, a low structure of steel and synthcrete, small but fortified, smoke curling from its generators. Colonial Marines in dark armor crouched among the trees, pulse rifles at the ready. One of them, broader than the rest with a graying beard, grinned when he saw Kale. Draven, you bastard, he called. Still finding trouble in all the wrong places. Kale clasped his friend's forearm. Rourke. Your timing's impeccable. Rourke's eyes flicked to Ceres, pregnant and trembling but unbroken. This her? Kale nodded once. This is Ceres Vera. Rourke gave a respectful incline of his head. Ma'am. Let's get you inside. The medical staff rushed them through the rear doors. Doctors snapped orders, guiding Ceres onto a prepared bed. Kale tried to follow, but Rourke caught his arm. Give them space. We need to talk. Reluctantly, Kale stayed back, watching through the glass as medics moved around Ceres, her crimson hair unbound and spilling across the sheets. His heart ached at the sight of her face, strained, exhausted, but resolute. She isn't just carrying a hybrid, Rourke said lowly, pulling up a datapad. Intel says the Meridian line carries a rare trait, telepathic resonance. The Syrian Council's been trying to splice it into their genome for centuries. Never worked. But this child, this could be the first natural bearer. Kale's head snapped around. A living bridge. Exactly. Which makes her the biggest threat to Syrian purity doctrine in generations. They'll risk war before letting that baby survive. Before Kale could answer, alarms shrieked. The ground shook as energy blasts rattled the compound. Marines scrambled to defensive positions, weapons primed. Purity squads, a soldier barked. East wing breach. Kale snatched a rifle from the rack, instincts kicking in. Then let's hold the line. Thought you'd retired, Rourke said, slapping a fresh power cell into his weapon. I did, Kale muttered grimly, but not stupidly. They took position in the corridor as blue plasma fire seared the walls. Marines returned volleys, the air thick with ozone and shouts. Kale fought with the calm precision of a soldier who had nothing left to lose, except now, he realized, he did. Everything. 15 brutal minutes passed. Just as the line began to buckle, a sound cut through the chaos. Not a scream, but a newborn's cry, thin, high, impossibly pure. The effect was immediate. Syrian soldiers staggered mid-step, weapons lowering as if seized by confusion. Some clutched their heads, eyes wide with shock. Kale froze, chest heaving. Then he felt it, a brush against his mind, soft yet undeniable. A whisper not of words, but of feeling. Wonder. Curiosity. Love. The child, Kale whispered, realization dawning. She's already reaching out. He tore from the line, sprinting back to the delivery room. Inside, Ceres lay on the bed, drenched in sweat, hair plastered to her skin. In her arms rested a tiny infant with lavender skin, neither fully Syrian nor Meridian, but something wholly new. The baby's eyes were open, iridescent silver, glowing faintly as if lit from within. Her tiny hand flexed, and Kale swore he felt her recognize him, an impression of warmth flowing into his chest. "A daughter," Saris whispered, voice hoarse yet radiant. "She carries the gift of light and the gift of mind." Kale stepped closer, breath stolen. "She's perfect." Outside, the battle faltered as soldiers on both sides struggled with the mental ripple spreading from the newborn. Diplomats were arriving, Rourke's voice barked over comms, but Kale heard none of it. All he saw was Saris. And the child who had just changed everything. The lavender-skinned infant pulsed softly with light, her glow in rhythm with the fragile beat of her heart. Kale stood transfixed, unable to look away as Saris cradled their daughter. Yes, his mind no longer questioned the word, in trembling arms. The silver eyes of the child opened fully, meeting his gaze. For an instant, Kale felt a surge within, impressions of warmth, safety, recognition. The mind touch of a newborn soul that already knew him. The door opened. Rourke strode in, flanked by 2 armored marines. Behind them came figures in diplomatic attire, an Earth ambassador, a stern Syrian delegate in pale robes, and a tall Meridian whose crimson skin shimmered faintly in the overhead lights. The ambassador's voice was steady, carrying the weight of history. "This child changes everything. Proof that unity can be born, not engineered." The Meridian stepped forward, bowing deeply to Saris. "Consul Jaren, of the Meridian Conclave. The glow within her confirms the light gift of my people." His voice softened. "She is the first true bridge between our kind in 7 generations." The Syrian delegate's face remained carved from stone, but his eyes betrayed fascination. "The Genetic Council will condemn this. Yet I cannot deny what I felt." His voice faltered as though the newborn's telepathic brush had unsettled even his iron will. Saris looked down at her daughter, exhaustion etching lines into her lavender skin. "She has already chosen her path," she whispered. "Connection, not division." Kale's chest swelled. He reached out, brushing a calloused finger across the infant's hand. The contact deepened the bond, sudden flashes of light, sound, and a wordless sense of family. "What shall we name her?" Kale asked, voice rough. Saris's lips trembled, then curved into a tired smile. "In my culture, names are chosen for what we hope they will become. In yours, for those we have lost. Then, let her be Lyra Mira. To honor both our futures and our grief." Kale's throat tightened at the echo of his lost wife's name. Gratitude and love surged in equal measure. He bent, pressing his forehead gently against Saris's. "Together," he whispered. Outside, the battle slackened. Reports came in, Purity squads retreating, their formation shattered by the newborn's telepathic presence. Human and Meridian forces regrouped, guarding the compound as envoys argued. But in the delivery room, politics blurred into background noise. All that mattered was the fragile child wrapped in her mother's arms and the dawning realization that the galaxy itself was bending around her. 6 months later, the landscape of Arkina had changed. The valley that once echoed with plasma fire now bloomed with gardens and new construction. Kale stood on the deck of his expanded bunker home, watching twin suns sink into the horizon. Where steel once dominated, stone and timber now intertwined, Saris's design, his labor, built brick by brick until the fortress became a sanctuary. In the garden below, Saris knelt beside Lyra Mira, her crimson hair glinting in the fading light. The child sat upright, lavender skin glowing faintly as she reached for blossoms with curious hands. At only 6 months, her growth was remarkable. She laughed silently, her mind brushing Kale's in wordless images of delight, colors of petals, the cool texture of soil, the warmth of her mother's touch. Kale descended the steps, his chest tightening at the sight. "She's been asking for me," Saris teased gently, her melodic voice carrying a hint of amusement. Kale crouched, lifting the child effortlessly. Myra's silver eyes locked onto his, and the telepathic bond surged again, this time clearer, more intentional. He received impressions of joy, safety, even curiosity at the stubble roughening his jaw. He chuckled, pressing his forehead against hers. "Yeah, I missed you too." Ceres rose, brushing soil from her palms. The Syrian Progressive Council sent another message. They wish her to meet others like her, when she is older. There are others? Kale asked, surprised. Not like her, Ceres admitted, eyes softening. But hybrids. Quietly hidden. Protected by humans. More than I imagined. Kale adjusted Mira against his chest, watching the child's glow brighten as if pleased by the thought. Guess humanity's stubborn streak finally came in handy. Humans break boundaries others accept as walls, Ceres said, stepping close, her cool lavender fingers lacing with his warm ones. You build bridges where others only see chasms. That night, after Mira slept, her nursery walls painted with scenes from both Earth and Syrian myths, Kale and Ceres sat together on the deck, stars spilling across the black. A bottle of wine sat between them, half empty, the air filled with the soft hum of nocturnal life. Do you ever think about that first day? Kale asked, turning to watch her profile in the starlight. Ceres smiled faintly. I thought you a threat. A human intruder, dangerous and unpredictable. And now, she leaned against him, her crimson braid falling across his chest. Now I understand the truth. Humans are all those things. But they are also capable of compassion where others see none. Kale kissed her hair, whispering, best decision I ever made, helping you with those stones. Her lips curved in amusement. You still speak as though it were your choice. Perhaps I allowed you. Perhaps you did. He pulled her closer, and their laughter mingled with the quiet of the night. As the moons rose, their bond deepened again, not only the physical spark that had first drawn them together, but the unshakable certainty that whatever storms came, they would endure. Mira had been born into fire and war, but her life would be built brick by brick, choice by choice, on love. 6 months had turned Kale Draven from a hermit soldier into a father, from a broken man into a builder of futures. His family, stood as proof that connection was stronger than division. And though the galaxy outside still bristled with old hatreds and fearful councils, in one small valley on Arcana, love had rewritten destiny. And so we come to the end of this extraordinary journey, a tale of a human soldier who thought he had lost everything, and a fugitive alien who carried not just a forbidden child, but the seed of change itself. Together, Kale Draven and Ceres Vera defied prejudice, war, and death to bring Mira into the galaxy, a child whose very heartbeat bridged species and reshaped politics. What began with a single act of compassion, helping a stranger lift stones, unfolded into a bond powerful enough to withstand pursuit, battles, and the weight of centuries of hatred. And through that bond came a child who touched minds and hearts alike, breaking walls that weapons could never breach. In the end, their story reminds us of the simplest truth: love is stronger than fear, family is stronger than war, and connection will always outlast division. If you enjoyed this retelling, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reimagine science fiction in bold new ways. Share this with a friend who loves star-crossed tales, and leave a comment below. What would you do if you found a stranger building a home in the wilderness? Until next time, keep imagining, keep exploring, and remember, sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change the course of galaxies.